Good morning to everybody. I'm very glad of facilitating this international online talk titled Global Citizen and Sustainable Development as a Drive to Shape the Future. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the C20 for giving us the opportunity to organize this event, which is included within the framework of C20 could say also international movement, and we are very happy of being part of this program and in discussing some of the, let's say, crucial topics to shape the futures. I'd like to say thanks to all our speakers. I can see here Matteo Vespa, Massimiliano Tarozzi, and the others that are coming in this few minutes, and for being here and give us their availability to discuss and deepen with us these two main concepts, global citizenship and also local development within the framework of Agenda 2030. And just a few words about myself to introduce myself. My name is Eloria Signoriello, and I'm the representative of Social Farming National Forum, and which is a community of practice of what we call the use of organic agriculture to promote the human rights of people. And then maybe during the day, I will give some more information about it. Close to me, and there is Paola Berbeglia, the president of CReA Association, but also the spokesperson of Concord, and the president also, and the person that during this year's let's say, facilitate the work of a G20 Educational Working Group. So before passing the floor to Matteo Vespa, which is representing, in this case, the European Students' Union, and we know that yesterday they had great events, and we will be very happy if you want to share with you the main outcome of these events. I want to just pass the floor to Paola Berbeglia to give us a conceptual framework of these events, and the C20 also that, you know, have been doing a lot of work during this year.
Exactly, thank you, Ilaria. The situation is exactly as you described. I mean, we introduced the issue of global citizenship last year when the G20 and C20 was held in Saudi Arabia. You can imagine what does it mean, talk about global citizenship in Saudi Arabia. And it was really a nice experience because opening the mind in this kind of contest is exactly what we have to do. I mean, it's important not to preach to the converted. So it's important in this sense to continue the work started last year. And this year, continuing as national expert in the context of educational working group of C20, we raised effectively the issue of global citizenship in a way that we can say is not univoc. I mean, we are aware that global citizenship education has become in the last decades a sort of catchphrase used by international and national educational agencies, as well as researchers, obviously, to delineate the increasing internationalization of education, but framed as an answer to the growing globalization, as we meant before, and the high values of citizenship at the same time. These developments, however, framed as an answer to the growing globalization and high values of citizenship. These developments have created issues due to the presence of two conflicting discourses. While the discourse of critical democracy highlights the importance of ethical values, social responsibility, active citizenry, a neoliberal discourse privileged instead a market rationale focused on self-investment and enhanced profits. So we are aware that we are talking about two discourses that are not completely separated, and they rather appear side by side, causing sometimes a confusing effect. So we are here exactly to discuss also these two phases issues, because we think that it's not something that we have just to be convinced, but that we have to interpret in our own context. So thank you for these two initial words, and I pass the floor again to Ilaria.
Thank you very much, Paula, to give us the framework on which we are going to discuss these two topics. I'm not going to take any more time, and I will pass the floor to Matteo, but asking Matteo also to focus on the main point of that raised up yesterday during this during the event organized by the European Student Union. And I will add also a question, because sometimes global citizen is very holistic, you know. It's difficult to understand what does it mean in a concrete term. You are expert, maybe we got in front of us people that don't know much about that. So from your perspective of student, and also from your international perspective, what does it mean being a global citizen, and connected to the main outcome of the yesterday conference? And thank you once again.
Thank you, Ilaria. Thank you very much for having me. So I'm going to introduce very briefly the organization. I'm a member of the Executive Committee of the European Students' Union, which represents almost 20 million students in the European continent through our 45 national union students in 40 countries. We work very closely within the European higher education area, with the European Union, Unesco, Council of Europe, and we have been among the founders, together with other continental student organization of the Global Student Forum, which is the first independent global student organization since basically the 1950s, when there was the split between the International Union of Students and the International Student Conference. The meeting that we had yesterday within the framework of the C20 Summit was actually to discuss about the impact of the pandemic and the necessity of having a universal education from a student perspective. We did that for a simple reason. Even if we have in several continents a good amount of student engagement and also co-development, we can say, of students within the governing bodies, higher education institutions, also as trusted stakeholders, this is not true in all the continents of the world, and especially this is not yet true at the global level. And we thought, and we think that we still lack the recognition by several international organizations of the specific student perspective and the recognition of democratic representative student organizations as part of that. So yesterday we had a panel which had member as panelists the Vice President of the European Students' Union, the members of the Executive Committee of the All Africa Student Union, the member of the Steering Committee of Global Student Forum coming from Trinidad and Tobago, and then the member of the Brazilian School Students' Union. We wanted to discuss basically three topics, which were student engagement and student representation, which was then global citizenship, and then it was the crisis that we are facing. The main message that we wanted to launch at that moment, and want to say here, is that the amount of challenges that this year has proven, and which is only, let's say, the last drop within the ocean among the global crisis, the climate crisis, the health crisis, the inequality crisis, and also the structural imbalances within the international cooperation between the global north and the global south, require a globalization of politics and a globalization of activism. For us, global citizenship is not just something linked to formal, non-formal, and informal education, of course. And this is, of course, the first step, in the sense that you need students, you need pupils to be to learn also how to engage in a increasingly multicultural and intercultural world, not only at the level of the international relations, but also at the level of their own neighborhood. But that means also something very substantial. Global citizenship means that if you are a global citizen, you need to have common rights, which need to be recognized everywhere. Of course, the human rights and all the covenants of the United Nations are part of that. And that is why, for instance, we are promoting and the Global Recognition Convention of Unesco, which is basically an international treaty that aims to ensure that the signatories will review fairly and equally the learning outcomes of the applicants from any country of the world. So in order to avoid also the economic injustices that we see, especially of people coming from the global south to the global north and needing to spend very much money in order for the titles to be recognized. But that means also having a intersectional approach, for instance, to the issues of inequality, to the gender justice, to the racial justice. It means also starting to talk about the imbalances of the structural imbalances that are present within the international society. As we were saying yesterday, we need this kind of discourse because the UN system is, but also the other intergovernmental fora like this or the G20 sprang out of very specific contexts. The allies of the World War that won the World War II, and the colonial powers that won World War II, as well as the G20 representing 60% of the world population, but living outside the 40%. And that is why, for instance, we are very welcome to participate in the C20, which is open to civil society organizations from all around the world, and we share that the impact of the G20 resonates much more than to the countries that agree to that. And we think, as the C20 does, that the only legitimate, say democratic, we can say in an international sense, forum is the UN system, and all the others intergovernmental fora needs just to be preparatory or implementing structures for what is decided at the UN level. And then we come, of course, to the issue of the climate crisis, the health crisis, and what also the pandemic emergency learning has taught us, which is that we have that there has been the private inequalities became public. In the distance learning, the pandemic emergency made the digital divide become more relevant than ever, made the housing conditions become more relevant than ever, and made even more sure that in those systems where you don't have a fair share of household or care work, as well as you don't have, for instance, the development of a good welfare state for kindergarten, etc., it's very difficult to be able to pursue educations. And also the importance, of course, of who provides this kind of IT and this kind of devices, and the role that digital education and digital divide and the providers of IT will play in post-pandemic education. What will the legacy of this pandemic learning, emergency learning be? We need to make sure that there is a regulatory framework, and this regulatory framework needs to be at the global level. And this is my last point about the globalization of politics. As we were saying, as we know, we have several integration processes happening in several continents of the world. Of course, also coming from Europe, myself, the European Union is just one example. But we see that in Latin America, we see that in Africa, we see it in Southeast Asia. But the challenges that we have are challenges that go to the global level, and we can think, for instance, the Paris Climate Agreement. We can think of now the proposals, for instance, to tax to try to diminish the power of financial tax havens. And so we need something that we don't have yet that much, which is a globalization of politics and a globalization of activism. We cannot leave this kind of discourses to be discussed only by intergovernmental bodies and by the government, but we need to have effective organizations that are the last link of a chain that goes up until the very local communities, that empower those communities that otherwise wouldn't have that much power in order to make their voice heard. And we need that for all these sectors. We have had that. We are now have in the students, and we want that to be recognized by the global organization, by UNESCO, by UN. we need that also for youth. We need a democratization of youth representation and go beyond the tokenist approach of youth ambassadors selected by no one knows whom. But we need that to have the youth council, to have the representative of youth to be there, and we need the same for all these actors. And I think that this is also a call for the political parties and for that actually hold the governments and are the main actors within the states to do the same. We need to have, as we are organizing within the Global Student Forum, to have this kind of change that empowers the person from Trinidad and Tobago to go to speak to a G20 side event, as happened yesterday. We need the same also for the trade union movement, but we also need for the political ones, because if we manage to do that, we are globalizing politics and we can work towards this common good. Thank you.
Grazie, Matteo. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution, also to bring into our discussion the main point that raised yesterday during your event, and also on behalf of me, but also as a citizen, I want to say thank you, because as a student you got a very clear idea of where you are going and what you have to do and achieve, and that's very important. And you also highlights one aspect that give me the link to speak to our second speakers, which is the member of European Parliament, Brando Benifei, that I want to say thank you for being here today with us and to bring his contribution. As you can see, we build up the panel, taking into account many different perspectives to underpin these topics that we believe are extremely important to shape the future and also the future of Europe, because this project and this event is also included within the European project, Europe for Future Forum, financed by the European Parliament, and which is like a participatory approach to bring ideas and topics and new approach within the framework of the International Conference on the Future of Europe. And as talking about the topics, I would like to make a question not very easy, but I think very important to Brando Benifei, starting by something that is happening in our country, in Italy. You know that now we are talking about sustainable development, but at the same time, we know that still we are stuck into forms of economy that are exploiting our community. And one of these examples is GKN, so the great, the multinational that sucked and fired more than 400 workers by email, and the point is to delocalize the production from Italy to another countries where the cost of the work is lower. So we can also raise awareness about this topic, local development, global citizenship, but we need, as Matteo said, a framework, a regulatory framework for these things not to happen. These things, they cannot happen again. So what is doing Europe from this point of view? And once again, thank you, Brando Benifei.
Yes, thank you to you for this invitation and for this effort to discuss very, very important issues. I have to excuse myself. As you see, I'm connected with a phone because I had some problems with my computer here in the parliament. So I managed to connect with this. And I must excuse myself also because we have an anticipation of a group meeting. So I will not be able to stay very much time, but I want to anyway give a contribution because, to be honest, I heard Matteo. I listened to his speech and I will add some things now, but he has, I think, said everything important that we should say about the need for the global activism and the framework of the situation we are moving in and we are acting. And I fully endorse what he said, and I greet him. I know him for a long time. And what can I add from my side? You made an example that is quite clear. The GKN, it's a case. We have many others, unfortunately. of forms of extreme exploitation of communities, where the multinational companies get as much as they can from the local authorities and from the community, and then they just move around for an absolute value of profit without any other consideration. This is an unsustainable model. This is part of the debate about the sustainability versus unsustainability of our economic models that have been able to mobilize people. I think of the very easy example that I will use now is the Fridays for Future, where you see an understanding, a consciousness of young people about the need for a new economic model. And it's not just about fighting climate change. If you talk with these young people, much younger than me, I'm usually considered a young politician, but I'm very old compared to these high school or even middle school girls and boys on the street. I had many occasions to talk with them, even a few days ago. Greta Thunberg was in Milan, in Italy, and their approach is comprehensive, and it's also part of a kind of we can say of education to global citizenship that they are giving to themselves. They are organizing themselves and are building, I think, a different set of values and of priorities, also to be presented to the political class. It's important to underline this, because I think that one problem that we had with the public opinions when we talk about these issues, again, the example of the exploitation by multinationals, is the lack of citizenship education and of global responsibility towards the planet, towards the communities, towards the human dignity. I think that this depoliticization of the public opinion that has transformed the attention, for example, for the political debates into attention for political personalities, like a form of a kind of permanent TV show, so that you are interested about leaders that we are not even sure what they think or what they do sometimes, but they are just people that are famous. This must be taken into account when we talk about this, because this depoliticization in a deep sense of the public opinion, I think, has contributed to these, let's say, 20 years where the phenomenon like the explosion of the globalization has not seen strong democratic government. We have seen of the globalization phenomena. Think of what has come out in these days about the tax evasion at global level with the Pandora Papers. You see that there is a lack of democratic governance of finance, as well as the relation between democratic governments and the actions of economic entities like the multinationals like GKN. So what I would say is that today we have seen a change in the political direction, in the sense that these topics that I remember very well just a few years ago, it was extremely difficult to really tackle in a clear and direct and even brutal way these contradictions of our economic model in the public debate. Now we have seen a new, we can say, a new normal of discussion that has been influenced by what we have lived in, the pandemic and the consequences. There has been a change in the way the public debate is shaped. There are a lot of resistances to look into these structural inequalities. But on the other hand, I see also pushed by the new generation, as I said, a growing consciousness. What do we need to do? And I conclude on this. On one hand, we need to build, I say that as a member of parliament, and looking at the European Union perspective, we need to build a more democratic and stronger union that can deal with these projects in a serious way. The projects that can build an economic model that can distance itself from the worst brutality of ungoverned capitalism of our time. Then GKN is a good example. And this needs to have, on one end, a political job of building a larger coalition between political forces and civil society to take the right decisions. At the same time, you need and Matteo was very clear on this point, we need the infrastructure, the institutional infrastructure that can take the decisions at the level where they can be effective on the actors that are part of the dynamics that I mentioned: globalization of economy, international trade, tax evasion, fight against climate change. So we need political battle. We need institutions that need to be stronger and more able to act at a transnational level. But finally, and I conclude on this, we need a structure for the education to global citizenship. I know you also are working on that. That's one of the work for the C20, etc. And I want to stress this to conclude. I think it's very important that we build this understanding of what it means to be a global citizen. And this means that we need to bring this into formal education, into traditional study paths of even for children. I think that social responsibility should be part of the school curricula. And then we need to strengthen, to continue support all the organizations like you also are doing, but many others, obviously also organized by civil society in a very local and spontaneous way. We need to support their work to build consciousness, to build debate, to build involvement. This means investing. This means spending money for that. Democracy is not just about voting, because this is the way you build a manipulated society. If you want a society that can let the best, I would say, the best efforts and the best examples and the actions that are relevant for the objectives we talked about to emerge and to develop, you need a robust participatory framework. So this means that we need to structure the to global citizenship. It must be structured in and out formal education. And this means, as I said, investing. So we need to continue also supporting European funds that can support the development of democracy in Europe and around Europe, also around us in the neighborhood. Thank you for letting me give some inputs, and thanks for your effort on all these topics.
Thanks to you, and thank you very much, because you brought a lot of interesting topics that maybe during the discussion we are going to deepen together, even if you are leaving. But I'm going to take like 2 minutes more, if you can stay with us, just because I want to ask you, just want to make a more question about you. The topic is global citizenship and local development. As in Italy, but as much as in Italy, in the different part of the world, we know that something is rising, and we call the social economy or civil economy, which create this deep connection between economic development, social justice, environmental, ecological justice. How this is very clear into your European politics. Is that clear that the 3 dimensions should go together? And this is your personal opinion about the future politics of European Union. Is that clear, this connection, and is it reflected in the politics?
Well, as I was saying, there is a movement in this direction, also coming from the public opinion. If it's completely reflected today, I would not be so optimistic. But I've seen an actual change. When we talk about these topics you mentioned, we see now that the political balance inside the institutions has moved towards these considerations, these attitudes. There is now think of the health issue. Now in Europe, you don't hear anyone anymore, even from the most ultra-liberal positions that want to privatize the health care for citizens, or think that we should reduce coverage. It's what we have lived in has given a clear message of priority for health issues, but then think also of the welfare state. Now, no one is saying that we just need to cut. One thing is efficiency in terms of allocation of resources. Another thing is saying we just need to disinvest and let the market do what it's best. This attitude again has changed, and no one is saying the latter I said. The things are changing. So this is obviously a good precondition, but then we need to have civil society to be at the center of the work of the union. Think of the importance of the opportunity that the political class has to give relevance to what will emerge from the Conference on the Future of Europe, where civil society is bringing these perspectives. And the parliament is, I would say, but also the national parliaments are quite involved in this to let this new thinking and new proposals, also looking at the economic model, to be developed and discussed and put into practice and supported by legislation. Governments are less, I would say, less ready to do it, because when you let the direct intervention of proposals from the citizens be brought to the table, you reduce the power of executives. But in this context, I think that what we really need, as we are facing a new world after what has happened in this last 1 year and a half, we really need this strong contribution coming from civil society and from the local experiences. So I think that the governments also should be more open and more ready to face these new trends that are emerging. The European Parliament and the national parliaments involved in the conference, I think, are already ready to do that, probably because they are closer for institutional reasons directly to the citizens. So we are going to work on this in the conference, and I think this will be very important, so that next year can be also the year where we build this momentum for a new social model to emerge after the COVID. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm not going to take any more time to you. So thank you very much to Brando Benifei for bringing his contribution. And if you want to stay with us, otherwise I'm saying hello in this moment, and I'm going to change, if you agree, Paola, a bit the order, because the input that came from Brando about especially the connection of global citizenship and democracy is quite interesting. And now we got Raymond Sois here, which is representing la région Occitane. I'd like to, now I was talking French because I thought it was more welcoming with our guest, but let's not make a confusion. So if you agree, I want to jump on him and asking, what do you think about this connection done by the Brando Benifei between global citizenship and democracy and development of democracy in our government? And then I will Pass you also.
Yeah, I want just to add something because I know that Eric, as international delegate of Region Occitanie, is working a lot on the sense of belonging to a global citizenship, and in French is rephrased in Éducation à la mondialité. But it's absolutely the same thing. And the region and Toulouse city is insisting a lot on this concept. So please, Eric, can you intervene? Can you explain why in your region is becoming so important in this moment exactly, please?
Okay, thank you for the invitation. First, I will begin by a statement by a woman who is called, I don't know if you know it, if you know her, Germaine Tillion is one of the 5 women who has entered the French Pantheon. She was an ethnologist, resistance fighter during World War II, and a humanist. And she fought all her life against torture, against discrimination, for education, and for the emancipation of individuals. She declared, humanity is made up of 2 tiny minorities, that of ferocious, brutes, traitors, systematic sadists on the one hand, and on the other hand, that of men of great courage and great disinterestedness, who use their power, if they have some, in the service of good. Between these 2 extremes, the vast majority of us are made of ordinary people, harmless in time of peace, but becoming very dangerous at the slightest crisis. I think this underscores the importance of the need to support education, and especially education for global citizenship. For Occitanie, region Occitanie, political strategy is unambiguous. It's a political choice. You know, our president, Carol Delga, committed to values of tolerance and inclusion, and she was this year the best elected president of a regional council in France. So you can have this courageous political choice and you can be re-elected. She defends the project of an inclusive region. That's a key word for the future, inclusive region. You know, she said, in Occitanie, we are proud of our identity and our cultures. Because we are open and connected to the world, it is in our region's DNA. Historically, it is a land of diversity, of welcome and mixing, of cultural mixing. You know, welcoming is in our genes. We are at the crossroads between Europe and Africa. We have a lot of population that have come forgot history and crisis from the north of France during World War II, but from Italy, Spain, Maghreb, Middle East, and maybe I forget a lot. So we are now we are rich of this heritage. It's important for us. When you work in Toulouse, when you you ask people where they are come from, nobody comes from Toulouse, you know. So, you know, this week we have the Africa Summit in Montpellier. So Occitanie is a region open to the world, whose inhabitants are committed to living together, to equality between peoples, culture, between women and men. It's been a long time we embraced the idea that there is only one planet. Our presidents often say there are no aliens on this planet. There are no aliens on this planet. So the question of of society. This is a question of society for the common future and universal. They have no borders. This is why it is fundamental to empower young people to understand this, to empower them to take an active role in building a more peaceful, a more tolerant, and a more inclusive society. So, naturally, we can't imagine sustainable development without this global citizenship education. By now, we finance NGOs to set up educational projects with schools, college, high school in the field of global citizenship and international solidarity. We call this solidarity tandems. It's based on voluntary action, but this is why it's important. It's important to have a lasting action. A lasting action that mobilize civil society, excuse me for my English language, it's a bit rusty, citizens on the world of education. By now, we seek to strengthen the world of education of this action. It's fundamental for us.
Thank you so much, Eric. We know that you are doing these choices also supporting some tools, using some tools that you are experiencing to study together with OECD, for example. Experimenting different shapes of possibilities for reaching exactly the sense of a global citizenship. Do you think that this issue is becoming more and more divisive or inclusive in your opinion? In Italy or everywhere, we are discussing about the fact to be global citizen, but if it is something that can unify a population or can divide. What do you think about your experience in Occitanie?
It's a bit difficult. I think, I said our president was the best elected president, and she always on this way. She is always on this way. So I think in our culture, this is not dividing people. No. Not here, but because it's a long way of thinking, I think most of people here are coming from somewhere else, so it's not I think we can't think like that. We can't. It's impossible for us, but it's a long way to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very important, Eric, what you said. Also because effectively joining research, academy, and politics and civil society is, as you said, a long way. For this reason, I would suggest that now Massimiliano,
yes,
as UCL in London, University of Bologna, could reach us, explaining us how we can join these different paths. What do you think? We know that you are doing a lot of research in this sense. You are exploring also applying a citizenship education for adults. That is not so easy to do. So please give us some inputs about you are reflecting. What do you think we should do in this sense?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me here, and I'm particularly glad to be here. And I'm also particularly glad that the topic of global citizenship education and education for sustainable development has been included into the overall agenda of this C20. This is very important. I'm also glad to hear, for example, from the European Parliament, that there is an attention of including global citizenship education within the agenda of the European Parliament for improving and promoting global citizenship education in formal and non-formal education. This is also very good. As for your question, Paola, so the role of research. Well, we all know that there are many actors playing a major role in promoting and implementing global citizenship education and informing policy, implementing the practice and informing policy. So many actors are playing a major role. And of course, NGOs and civil society organizations are one of these major actors. So the dialogue between civil society organizations and policymakers is crucial for an actual, concrete and successful implementation of global citizenship education in school curriculum. This is the example of many European countries that I have studied in research in the last few years, where this connection between civil society organization and policymakers happen. A bottom-up approach for implementing global citizenship education has been put into practice. It was very successful. So this is crucial. And we all know that the multi-stakeholder approach is very important, not only for creating successful practice, but also for informing policy. But in this dynamic relationship, I think it's not only a bilateral relationship between two poles, but there's a third pole, which is research, which is higher education institutions, and the role of academia. So it's a kind of a triangle of actors that should be able to collaborate for precisely for the promotion of global citizenship education policy and practice. I've the opportunity to study in depth the role of NGOs in this field as a researcher. This is one of the examples. Researchers can do research on NGOs and their role in promoting global citizenship education. I've done this research in Europe, and among the results, of course, I have no time now to present all the results, but just to point out three main domains of the particular role of civil society organization in promoting global citizenship education practice and policy. So first of all is a contribution in developing a theory of global citizenship education, because the very topic of global citizenship education is traditionally a topic owned by NGOs and civil society organizations, much before than there was even recognized in schools. In interviewing teachers across Europe, we realized that in many countries, without NGOs, an awareness of global issues might never have emerged in some schools. So that was originally, historically, a topic from NGOs, and they contributed to the shift from the margin to the mainstream of the educational discourse. So this is one of the first contributions. So on promoting the very concept, the very name, the very terms of global citizenship education. Secondly, on the political level, NGOs have played a major role in promoting and lobbying, advocating global citizenship education at local and national and also international level. And we realized that they could do that because of because they are more flexible, their political agenda is more adaptable compared to other more rigid agenda of institutional bodies. And they very much were able to merge the agenda of different political actors. And then finally, on a practical level, because when NGOs and civil society organizations cooperated with schools in formal education, they they introduce in school a more innovative educational practice, a transformative approach, a values-based approach, which sometimes is not well accepted by the traditionally neutral teachers. So that was very important for introduction in schools. However, this transformative and critical approach, non-neutral approach, introducing in schools by civil society organization and NGOs sometimes has created some tensions between school staff. So this is a problem. So that relationship should be carefully negotiated between civil society organizations and school staff, because on the one hand, while the civil society organization were able to include and to inform and to stimulate a critical voice and more commitment attitude in schools, on the other hand, they should be able to understand the feature and the characteristics of the school learning environment and their own constraints. Anyway, but what is the role of research? Because that was your question. Okay, that is an example of research. So we realized that not because it's my opinion, that was a 3 years research studying in 10 European countries the role of NGOs in promoting, and other political actors in promoting global citizenship education in schools. And then a focus in 4 countries studying teacher education programs, initial teacher education program, and in-service teacher education programs, with a strong contribution of NGOs. On the academia perspective, in research, global citizenship education in the last decade, I would say, has become a quite definite and clear growing research area. Let me give you some data, because we, as an Angel Academic Network for Global Education and Learning, which I'm coordinating across Europe and elsewhere, we just released a report on the state of the art of research on global citizenship education, exploring the academic publication of that. And we realized that in the last 5 years, almost 300 books have been published on global citizenship education in the academia, and 1,580 academic articles have been published in the last 5 years on global citizenship education. So it's a growing field, like quite precise field. About the role, I think that there are many potential contribution of research in this triangle of policymakers, the civil society organization, or more broadly, the practitioners and researchers. So the contribution of research could be manifold. So first of all, the very conceptualization of the notion of global citizenship education and related terms. At the very beginning, Paolo, you mentioned the non-univocal and disputed definition of global citizenship education. You call it a catchphrase, global citizenship education. You're right, because it's quite an ambiguous term. And this could be a problematic, and it is problematic, because according to our research from Concord Europe, for example, these difficulties in defining global citizenship education is perceived as particularly disturbing by NGOs practitioners, because they are expected to transform global citizenship education in actual practice. So they need clear concept to refer to, and this ambiguous definition is a problem. So the conceptualization work is one of the research work that research could provide, and also for make clear what you mentioned at the beginning. So the different pedagogies, the different approaches, the different ideologies, or the different paradigms behind underpinning global citizenship education. You mentioned the neoliberal paradigm or the more critical one. So there are many different paradigms for global citizenship education, and this is also an object for research. Not to mention, and I conclude because there are many other, but not to mention the very important role of measuring the progress of the achievement of target 4.7. Because we all know that SDGs is so important. We all know that target 4.7 is crucial for that, not only as a target per se, but also as a overall cross-cutting approach for achievement of all the 17 SDGs. But we also are aware that this target is so difficult to transform into indicators, into objective measurement, statistically relevant goals. That is very important. But it's also important to be measured, and that's another contribution that research could provide. So discussing and providing solutions for measuring the target 4.7 indicator. And then, of course, the research practice, exploring the successful practice, the success factors for good practice, and how to transform, how to export those practice to different educational settings. This is another important role of education research. And many others. That's to provide just a few examples. I don't think I have time to talk about adult education, but just a few words, because it's crucial. Is an emerging field. Unfortunately, has been poorly researched and poorly applied, but it's a growing field because traditionally adult students are extremely expanding in the last few years. So there is not only the traditional illiterate adult population of workers, illiterate workers, but now adult education means so include also early school leavers, include also the youth NEET, the not in education or in employment train, the long-term unemployed, and also migrant and refugees are the large majority of adult education students. So this is a very growing and important and crucial population, and also they deserve to be educated through global citizenship education, which is not only related to the early stage of education. And in our research promoted by the Unesco UIL, the Institute of Lifelong Learning, we explore this area and we try to conceptualize a framework for education in adult education, which is in line of the holistic approach of UNESCO, of an education that could be lifelong and life-wide in every stage of the life and in every setting of our society.
Okay, Massimiliano, you centered exactly what we asked. I think that today's debate finally has shown that we are coping probably with a real sensitive issue. We passed in a moment from an issue that you can find among the issues studied at primary school to an issue that requires common vision, collective responsibility, mainly also towards the right to work, globalization, etc. I mean, I think that, for example, as NGOs, as an association of NGOs at European and also Italian level, we are effectively looking for taking actions in this sense. I mean, we need the contribution of all the stakeholders that we have here all around today, because we perceived that we are not able to realize anything if we are not able really to unify this kind of environment. And this is for this reason that we try to launch two main initiatives today, and we don't know if they will be effective, but anyway, we are trying to. One is a sort of charter, manifesto, something so that I would share with you, and it's something that we have written thinking about how to concretely realize citizenship in everyday life. And in this sense, we just to collect all our different efforts, we tried to concretize in such a way. make me feel important for who I am, empower me to contribute to the common good with what I can do, make me feel part of a whole, let me tell my story, accept my doubts and criticisms, my intemperance, accept me as I am, allow me to move from a place where I don't want to be, give me time, let me dare what I desire, let me feel that my patience and my commitment can become my work, don't make me implode in my anger to see my rights trampled on. So in this sense, we are trying to give a sort of list of desired things, and we would like that we can discuss if it could be effectively transmitted to the others. And last but not least, I try to share a tool that we are building, and we invite you to contribute to, hoping that it's possible to see it. What? Okay.
Yes, you share the screen.
Okay. This is a tool, as you can see, is a map, and where we are putting some centers about global citizenship education centers, health, work, inclusion, and training centers. We could keep in contact with elaborating some innovative tools, research initiatives mainly. And so is an implementing map, is a way to contribute concretely to someone, for example, who is new in a local context and would keep in touch with the other. So if you are interested in continuing the work all together, sharing the charter and sharing this kind of tool, please let us know, because we will continue on this path, common path. So let us know if you are together, if you are with us.
It's like a wiki map, and you can update it, and this will it's quite useful in terms of different organizations that they can add the topics and the initiative.
Yeah, it was already implemented by several associations for the moment in Europe, but absolutely is a map, is a word map. So we can absolutely implement it as a collaborative tool. So thank you really so much for today's debate. We think that it's very important, and hopefully it will be taken also by the G20. We discussed about this issue with them, absolutely. And as you know, also in the policy pack is well highlighted. We hope to continue on this all together. And thank you to everyone, and also to the participants to the debate from the site of C20.
Thank you very much indeed to everybody. So to our speakers, and to the IT's report that is here with us. And see you soon, because we will push these topics to be really at the center of the agenda of politicians, civil society organization, but also work. Thank you very much indeed.